YouTube. And as we begin this evening, Linda, anything to share about our opening hymn?
Our opening hymn is just another opportunity to see our choir people. Kia Shmera is like welcoming Shabbat, and we do have choir people. So I like to remind you who they are, because we are coming back. We just don't know when, but we are coming back. We shall return. So.
And in the interim, here is our opening hymn.
We're not hearing it.
You're not hearing it. Oh, no. Okay. Let me try it this way.
Okay, we're hearing it now.
Let me start that again. Thank you, Linda and choir. We are now going to turn to page 120. Melissa Fleischer this evening leads us in the kindling of the lights for this evening, which is both Shabbat and Yom Tov, as it is the last day, the seventh day of Passover. Melissa?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat v'Yom Tov.
Amen. Thank you, and thank you, Melissa and Jess and Jared. Our service continues now on page 138 and 139 with L'Chadodi as we continue to welcome the Sabbath, the first, the second, and then on 139, the last verse of L'Chadodi.
Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat likrat kala, b'nei panei Shabbat nikabila. Lecha lecha dodi, lekrat likrat kala, b'nei panei Shabbat nikabila. Shamo v'zacho b'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el ham yechad Adonai echad, u'shemo echad. La 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 chadoti, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabila. Lecha chadoti, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabila. Likrat Shabbat lechuven elcha, ki mekor habracha merosh mikerem nesucha. So say b'makshevati la 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 chadoti, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabila. Lecha chadoti, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabila. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha hutzohola, tochemunei am sigula, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabila. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, panei Shabbat nikabila.
And we now turn to page 144. And what a delight that Matthew Whitmire, who becomes a bar mitzvah in this sanctuary, Shabbat away from now. Matthew will be leading sections both next Friday night and Shabbat morning, as well as we're going to get a little bit of a preview this evening as well, as Matthew leads us first in the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yikada v'yikada shamei rabba.
Amen.
Be'amad ivra kirote yamikluch malte. B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'chaye dikol be'Yisrael. Bagala u'vizman kariv v'meru. Amen. Yahei shemei rabba mevora. Le'yam yomei amaya yepara v'yishtabah v'yetapar v'yetramad v'yenaseh v'yethadar v'yethaleh v'yethalal shmei dekudusha prehu le'oman dekol birchata v'shirata tushbichata v'nechemata damrim be'yama v'meru. Amen.
Amen. We now turn to page 146. We invite those who wish and are able to rise as Matthew leads us in the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
I read on page 148. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons. and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzivaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on evening.
Baruch atah Adonai Hamarif Aravim.
Linda sings Ahavat Olam, page 150.
Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amecha Ahavta Amecha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot u'himru mishtabim otanu lemadeta otanu lemadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shukbenu me'elu me'avim zechecha v'nizra v'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki heim chayenu v'yorech yameinu u'vahem negeh yomam v'layla negeh yomam v'layla Ve'ahavacha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael Ohev Amo Yisrael
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vahed.
Please be seated. The Ve'ahavta, led by Matthew, page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levacha uv'chol nefeshcha uv'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dirbata bam v'shivtecha b'vetecha Uvlecha v'derech uv'shemcha uv'chumecha uchtavtam lo al yadecha v'hayu l'totafot beinenecha uchtavtam amazizot beitecha uvisharecha leman titzgeru v'tzitem ekol mitzvotai v'heitem k'v'koshim le'echem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher Hotzeiti Echem Me'eretz Mitzrayim Le'yot Lachem Le'ohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Rabbi, you have to unmute.
Sorry about that. I was about to say, page 156, towards the bottom of the page, when your children witnessed your dominance, they praised your name in gratitude, and they accepted your sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and all Israel sang to you together, lifting their voices joyously. Page 158 for Mi Chamocha, a melody appropriate to our holiday.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef elef.
And I am now going to screen share a prayer for Shabbat, Yismechu, sung by our choir.
No.
I'm sorry, that's a preview of another piece to come. I'm sorry, it should be right here. Let's, you know what? I have to stop the share and start that again. Sorry about that.
Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Shabbat. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reshit Shabbat. Zecher l'maseh v'reshit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha. Shomrei, 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 Shabbat v'korei onei Shabbat.
We now turn to page 164. So we're ready for the tefillah, and we'll be chanting the prayers on the right-hand pages to page 170. Matthew will be leading us in our avot, imahot, and geburot prayers. For those who are able, we invite you to rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanara, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Socher Chasadim V'Avot V'Ima'ot, Umafi Gula Levanehem, Liman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai L'chayei HaKol Atah Rav Shia L'chayei Chaim V'Chesed L'chayei HaKol Berachavim Rabim Somen Noflim Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Umakayem Amunato L'Shenei Afar Mi chamocha bal givaro umidom elach Melik mami umachaya umasriya v'shua v'neman ata v'chayota kol Baruch atah Adonai v'chayei hakol.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God.
Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. At Passover, we are to see ourselves as having left Egypt. In Hebrew, Egypt, Mitzrayim, the tradition translates the word Mitzrayim as narrow places, places of confinement. As we pray for peace this evening, we remain ever hopeful for renewal of life, taking us beyond our narrow places. We also know that as a nation and as a world, much has to be done, including by us, to ensure a time when all shall sit under their vines and under their fig trees, with none to make them afraid. With news of another targeting of the Capitol and the loss of life, the death of a police officer, with news this week of the tragedy we've been following at the trial of the murder, the killing of George Floyd, there's wisdom in our ancient prayer and our advocacy to go beyond narrow places. We sing Shalom Rav, our prayer for abundant peace, page 178.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Nasim Leholam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Tasim Leholam. Ki atahu melech adon lekol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lekol hashalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael tasim leholam. Shalom Rav Yisrael tasim leholam. Etov be'enecha livarech et amecha Yisrael bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav Yisrael tasim leholam. Shalom Rav Yisrael tasim leholam. Tasim leholam. Tasim leholam.
Silent prayer. We pause.
say shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oh, say shalom, shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'achol Yisrael, amen. Oh, say shalom
It's that time of year again. We find ourselves still in the holiday of Passover, but from the beginning of Passover, we start counting the period of time known as the Sfirat Omer, the counting of the Omer, the Sfira, the counting, a period which will take us from Passover to 50 days after the beginning of Passover to Shavuot, to the Festival of Weeks. And each evening along the way, and whenever we're in worship, we count together the Omer. There's a blessing to be recited. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. Blessed are you, eternal our God, sovereign of the universe, who makes us special through commandments, commanding us to count the Omer. Hayom shisha yamim la'omer. Today is the 6th day of the Omer, and today is, incidentally, the 7th day of Passover. Our service now continues as we ready for the reading of the Torah this evening. Linda sings Ki Mitzion.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai mirushalayim.
Now there's a rabbinic commentary. It's called Mechilta de Rabbi Yishmael. It comments on the verse read on the last day of Passover, on this period, what we read. And the scene which we'll be reading is at the shore of the sea, which God is about to part. The people think they're going to be slaughtered by Pharaoh's troops who are advancing quickly. With biting sarcasm, they say to Moses, "Was it for want of graves in Egypt that you brought us here to die in the wilderness?" Soon God says to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward." This midrash, the Mechilta, explains. And Adonai said to Moses, "Why do you cry out to me?" Rabbi Yehoshua says, "The Holy One of Blessing said to Moses, 'Moses, all that Israel has to do is to go forward.'" Rabbi Eliezer says, "The Holy One of Blessing said to Moses, 'Moses, my children are in trouble. The sea is raging and the foe is pursuing, and you stand and prolong your prayers?'" For Rabbi Eliezer was wont to say, there is a time to prolong prayer and a time to shorten. Elna Rafana La, please God, please her, please heal her. We know that prayer as one of our prayers for healing. That's an example of to shorten. "And I fell down before Adonai in prayer as at first 40 days and 40 nights. Moses says that in the book of Deuteronomy, 40 days, 40 nights. That's a long prayer. The lesson, God appreciates and instructs us to consider context and circumstance as we offer our prayers and understandings. Sometimes it's better just to get on with it. In that spirit, we'll proceed right to our Torah portion. Michelle Rosen is our Aliyah to the Torah this evening. And Michelle, so again, what we learned from the Midrash, what we learned from the Midrash on this week's portion, on the seventh day's portion, is that there's a time when you should really just do the prayers very quickly. When Egypt is approaching, that's a good time, as an example for that. And right here, I'll put my computer so that you can hopefully see where we have the beginning of our portion, and we invite Michelle Rosen to do the blessing before the reading of the Torah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch
Adonai Hambra Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher baruch banu mikol ha'amin. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen. V'yechezek Adonai et lev Paro. God Adonai hardened Pharaoh's heart. Pharaoh the Melech Mitzrayim, king of Egypt. You'll notice how many times Egypt is mentioned in this passage. V'yirdoch acharei b'nei Yisrael, u'b'nei Yisrael yotzim b'yad Ramah. And they chased after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel left, the translation is left defiantly, b'yad Ramah, literally left with a raised hand. So they're leaving, as it were, fists up in protest. V'irdefu Mitzrayim achareihem, and the Egyptians chased after them. Ve'asigu otam chinam al hayam kol sus rechav paro ufarashav v'chelo, and all of the chariots and the horses and the soldiers for Pharaoh, al pi hachirot lifnei Baal Petzon, by fi pachirot, next to before Baal Saphon. Ufaro hikriv v'yisau v'nei Yisrael et enehem v'hine Mitzrayim nosea acharechem, and Pharaoh approached them, and the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, Egypt was advancing before them, advancing right after them. Vayira'u ma'od, and they were very afraid. V'yitzaku b'nei Yisrael el Adonai, and they they cried out to God. Vayomru el Moshe, and they said to Moses, Hami bli en kvarim b'Mitzrayim, was there not enough graves in Egypt? Lakachtanu lamut b'midbar, for us to die in the desert. Ma zot asita, what have you done, Lanu, to us? Lahutzianu mimitzrayim, bringing us out of Egypt. Halo ze hadavar asher dibarnu elecha, was this not just what we said to you, b'Mitzrayim in Egypt, lemor, Chadal mimenu, saying, Chadal mimenu na'avda et Mitzrayim, kitov lanu avodet Mitzrayim mimutenu b'midbar. When we said, let us be servants in Egypt, for it's better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. Vayomer Moshe el ha'am, and Moses said to the people, Al tira'u, do not be afraid. Hityatzvu, stand by. Uru et Yeshuot Adonai, and see the deliverance from Adonai, from God. Asher ye'aseh lachem hayom, who will do today for you today. Ki asher re'itim et Mitzrayim hayom, lo tosifu lirotam od ad olam. For as you see the Egyptians today, you will never see them again ever. Adonai yilachem lachem v'otam tacharishun. God will fight on your behalf, so you be quiet. The Yomer Adonai el Moshe, and God said to Moses, Ma titzakalai, why are you crying unto me? Daber el b'nei Yisrael, speak to the children of Israel, v'yisa'u, that they may go forward. V'ata harem et matcha unte et yadcha al hayam, and you should take your staff and raise your hand above over the sea, v'ka'ehu, and it will and split it. V'yavo'u b'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha, and the children of Israel will go into the sea as if on dry land.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Rebecca. The Torah will now be returned to the Ark. Linda will be singing Etz Chaim, that Torah is a tree of life.
Etz Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tom cheham behushar derachei adarchen noam v'chol netivotecha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yamenu Chadesh Yamenu Kekedem.
We now pray on behalf of dear ones within and beyond our congregational family who are ill and in need of healing. We include Bracha bat Chava Avraham, Chaya Naomi bat Sarah Pesach, Robert Dower, Janet and Jim Dias, Alan Elias, Zena Garber, Ed Jantz, Jeff Levy, Leah Linton, Art Phillips, Wes Schoenfuss, Michael Schwartz, Alan Stein, Michael Walsh. We also pray for all people fighting COVID-19. And I now invite you to unmute and say out loud the names of those for whom we likewise pray this Shabbat.
Larry Lefkoff and Bess Abramson.
Charlotte
Diane-
Burnham.
Diane
Elaine
Cohen.
Rosenthal.
Judy Di Demizio.
For all, may the Holy One send healing and shelter in protection. Our Misha Berach prayer, page 371.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu vekor habracha Bless those in need of healing the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Consider which version you like better. For our tradition offers two competing understandings of how, after the plagues, the children of Israel were able to go through the sea to freedom. One view is that of Rabbi Meir, and he said, when the people fleeing slavery in Egypt arrived at the sea, each one wanted to be the first to go into the water. But the tribe of Benjamin elbowed the others out of the way and went in first. As it is written in the Torah, he dwells between his shoulder. That is, they were able to get in first. Rabbi Meir continued, thereupon the princes of Judah hurled stones at them. And for that reason, the righteous of Benjamin was worthy to become the host of the all-powerful. That is, the temple was erected on the territory of Benjamin. Rabbi Judah, however, disagreed. And it's recorded in the Talmud that he said to Rabbi Meir, no, that is not quite the way it happened. In fact, each person and tribe said, you first. I'll go in after you. You first. And while they were standing there deliberating, that is, they're arguing, no, you first, no, you first, Nachshon, son of Aminadab of the tribe of Judah, ran forward and jumped into the sea. And this is proved in the Bible in Psalm 114, B'tzeit Yisrael. And Linda sang this just so beautifully in our Seder last Sunday night. B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim. Judah became God's sanctuary because the sea saw him and fled. Hence the waters went back, and the children of Israel could march through because of Nachshon, son of Aminadab, jumping in. Which rabbi was right? Perhaps the answer is really, which interpretation do you personally prefer? I'm inclined to agree with Rabbi Judah over Rabbi Meir, because I like what Nachshon did more than what Benjamin did. I'd rather have as my role model a person who bravely volunteered instead of a person who cut in line or jealous people hurling stones. More about Nachshon. The Bible presents him as an ancestor of Boaz, Ruth's husband, and of an ancestor of King David. It is said of Nachshon that the waters did not split until he had waded into the water up unto his neck. Only at that point did the sea part and the Jews walk across. The lesson that sometimes we have to fully immerse ourselves, throw ourselves all the way in, take the leap of faith before we see results. Our rabbis also teach that earning a livelihood, making a living, and matchmaking, finding the right soulmate, is as hard as God's splitting the sea. Here we are offered another moral, that we should not take anything for granted, from work to relationships. In each realm, it is possible to find the sacred, something holy. Synagogues and communities offer meaning and camaraderie, places to find friendship and assist others. We frequently call for volunteers. Here again, the Nachshon model can be helpful. May we willingly answer the call, even while others sit on their hands or argue who should be the first in. Ken Yehiratzon, Be this God's will. Our service now continues, page 586. For those who are able, we invite you to rise for the Aleinu. The Aleinu that we'll be chanting is the second paragraph down on the page.
Aleinu l'shabeach lahadon hakol latet gedula liotze breshit shelo asanu kugei havratzot velo samanu kemishbechot hadama shelo sam chelkenu kahem vigor aleinu kirchol hamonam Vanaknu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu.
Please be seated. V'ne'emar, page 591.
V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
At this moment in our service, we now call to mind our own beloved dead. We pray on their behalf. We voice the confidence that they are remembered for blessing. I ask that those in mourning or remembering the anniversary of the death of a loved one, should you wish at home, please rise when their name is mentioned. We share news of the death this week of Uma Roy, aunt of Laura and Neil Jackson. During Shiva, we remember Paul Feynman. During Shloshim, we remember Marty Gross, husband of Michelle, and Wendy Hoser, daughter of Joyce. We remember the yartzites, the anniversaries of the deaths of Nancy Brandt, Abram Bress, Sarah Cohen, Nathan Davidson, Sigmund Deutsch, Florence Erlanger, Abe Geller, Joseph Goldberg, Manning Greenberg, Peter Hall, Morris Hort, Heather Rose Cornick, Leopold Levy, Francis Lieber, Judy Marangio, Rose Bastanian Munkemeyer, Ann Protter, Jacob N. Rearson, Wallace Rifkin, Charlotte Smatroff, Ray Spiro, Morris Spurt, and Rose Zetzer. Should you have a dear one to add, please unmute your computer and say their name.
Doris Abramson.
We also remember the dead this week from COVID-19. Each Shabbat, we also mention 6 names amongst the 6 million murdered in the Holocaust, the Shoah. This week, we remember Estera Banchuk, Liba Banchuk, Yisrael Ben Stock, Leah Ben Stock, Bilha Ben Stock, and Shammai Ben Stock. In remembrance and solidarity, and on behalf of those for whom there is no one but us to say Kaddish, we now invite all to rise if you are able. Our Kaddish prayer is on page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach chirutei, v'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mavarach, le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yit hadar, v'yit aleh, v'yit halal, shemei v'kudashah v'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, damiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlema rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. Our concluding hymn this evening is also amidst Passover, Dear Who, which is an acrostic poem praising God.
Now I apologize. I love this hymn, and we only get to say it usually during Passover, and we don't necessarily, we don't hear it the rest of the year. I'm not exactly sure why, because it's really something that I think would be really fitting any time of year, but it's all these different wonderful praising God with many different words, and it follows the alphabet. So I think it's a very neat tune, and and the tune itself is a sweet little tune. So I apologize for not having the Hebrew. I only have the transliteration, and I apologize, but I just couldn't kind of put it together with my limited technical savvy. So maybe for next year I'll have that for you. Dear who, if never bekarov, bimhera, biyamenu bekarov, el b'nei bet bekarov. Bacharu gadolhu daguhu yivneveto bekarov bimhera biyamenu bekarov el b'nei bet bekarov. Hadurhu vatikhu zakaihu chasidhu livneveto bekarov bimhera biyamenu bekarov el b'nei bet bekarov. Tahorhu yakidhu kabirhu lamudhu melechhu norahu sagifhu izuzhu podehu tzadikhu yivneveto bekarov bimhera biyamenu bekarov el b'nei bet bekarov. Kadosh hu, Rachum hu, Shaddai hu, Takiv hu, yivneveto bekarov bimhera biyamenu bekarov el b'nei bet bekarov. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Linda, for your lovely music. Mazel Tov to Matthew, who becomes a bar mitzvah next Shabbat. Tomorrow morning is the seventh-day Passover morning service. It's here on Zoom at 10 a.m. You can use the same code you used this evening to get into tomorrow morning. There is a Shiva Minyan for Paul Feynman that will be held at 5:30 p.m. on Sunday. And please contact me directly for the code. Shabbat Shalom, Hag Sameach. I'm now going to take